Picture 5 wolf pups in a Minnesota meadow. They rush an adult coming back from the hunt, and they start licking at the corners of its mouth fast, frantic, right on the lips. 30 seconds later, the adult lowers its head and throws up a pile of half-chewed food, and the pups dig in. That's a real, documented observation. And here's the part that changes how you'll see your own dog. That exact move, the lick aimed straight at the mouth, is the ancestor of the kiss your dog gives you when you walk in the door. So before you call it a kiss tonight, stay with me. Because that sweet little lick started as something far stranger, a demand to bring up dinner, and by the end of this video, you'll also know the one kind of licking you should never ignore. I'm with PetMindLabs, where we stop guessing and start seeing. Let's look. Here's the thing. When your dog licks your face, your hands, your ankles after a shower, almost everyone reaches for the same word. Kissing. The internet is full of it. He's giving you kisses. She loves you so much. Last. And well, but step back for a second. Kissing is a human invention. It's cultural. There are human societies that don't kiss at all. Dogs didn't watch us and decide to copy a romantic gesture. So if licking isn't a borrowed kiss, where did it actually come from? And why is it pointed so often at your mouth and your face specifically? That question has real answers, and they're not vague. Animal behavior researchers and wildlife biologists have studied this for decades in wild wolf packs, in mother dogs with newborn pups, and in controlled tests with dogs reacting to human faces. When you put their findings side by side, a much more interesting picture shows up. Licking isn't one thing. It's a whole vocabulary. The same behavior can mean, feed me, I come in peace, your family, or, and this is the one that matters for your dog's health, something is wrong with me. Your job isn't to label every lick as love. It's to read which sentence your dog is actually saying. So let's take the explanations one at a time, oldest first starting tens of thousands of years before your dog ever met you. Go back to the wild canid playbook. Wolf pups can't hunt. They're stuck at the den or the rendezvous site, while the adults travel miles to find food. So evolution gave them a button to press. They lick and nuzzle at the returning adult's mouth, and that licking triggers the adult to regurgitate a meal the pups can actually eat. This isn't a cute theory. In a field study of a wild wolf pack on Ellesmere Island, 6 summers of observation, from Mutngin Chinchum Tamwe Tam to Mutngin Chinchum Chinwe Sao, biologist L. David Mack and his colleagues described pups poking their muzzles around an adult's mouth, and they found that roughly Barmui of adults regurgitate food as soon as the pups meet them. That's Mack, Wolf, and Packard, Mutngin Chinchum Chinwe Chin, in the Canadian Journal of Zoology. Licking the mouth is the doorbell, and food is the answer, and we've caught it on the ground in modern times too. In August, Haingin Lermubai, in the Voyageurs ecosystem in Minnesota, a researcher watched 5 pups lick up at an adult wolf's mouth for about 30 seconds, and then the adult regurgitated 3 separate times, over about a minute. That observation, published by Homkes and colleagues in Haingin Ler Haimui in the Wildlife Society Bulletin, is the one I described at the very start. The regurgitated food, by the way, was wild blueberries. Even wolves bring takeout. Now connect the dots. Domestic dogs are, in many ways, wolves that never fully grew up. Through thousands of years of living alongside us, dogs hold on to puppy-like traits well into adulthood, floppy behaviors, playfulness, and yes, this juvenile habit of licking at a bigger family member's face. A wild adult wolf mostly grows out of begging at the mouth. Your dog never does, because in a sense your dog stays a perpetual puppy with you as the trusted adult who comes home with the food. So your dog greeting you at the door with a face lick is running an ancient program that originally meant your backfeed the little ones. Over generations of living in our homes, that program got pointed at us. It's a greeting and a care-soliciting signal, aimed at the family member who controls dinner. Warm? Absolutely. A kiss? No. Which raises the obvious next question: if it's a leftover from begging, why does your dog also do it when nobody's hungry, and sometimes when the mood is tense? Here's where it gets genuinely useful. Licking is also how dogs lower the temperature in a social moment. Researchers led by Natalia Albuquerque ran a study published in Haingin Ler Muay Term in the journal Behavioral Processes called, plainly, Mouth Licking by Dogs as a Response to Emotional Stimuli. They showed dogs images of human and dog faces, some angry, some neutral paired with sounds. The dogs mouth licked more when they saw angry, negative human faces than neutral ones, and they did it more for human faces than for dog faces. Read that again. The dog isn't licking because it's happy. It's licking in response to your negative emotion. It's a communication signal, a way of saying, easy, I'm not a threat. A second team confirmed the calming side of this. In Haingin Ler Haimuiba, Pedretti and colleagues published a study in the journal Animal Cognition with 53 dogs. They had unfamiliar people approach each dog in either a mildly threatening way or a neutral way, and they watched what the dogs did. The dogs that stayed calm and non-aggressive, the ones not barking or lunging, were the ones showing behaviors like nose licking and lip wiping. In other words, licking lined up with a peaceful, non-confrontational attitude. It's a white flag. So that lick you get when you lean in too fast, or when you come home frustrated and your dog won't stop licking your hand. That may not be, "I'm so excited." It can be, "Please, let's keep this friendly." Same action, completely different sentence. Picture a really common scene. A child runs up and throws both arms around the family dog's neck for a hug. The dog goes still, turns its head slightly, and licks at the air, at the kid's face, at its own nose. Everyone in the room says, "Aw, he's kissing the baby." But to a behaviorist, that dog may be saying something much more important. "This is a lot. I'm trying to stay calm. Please give me room." Reading that lick as a kiss instead of a request is exactly how perfectly good dogs end up in situations they were quietly asking to leave. Learning this one signal can genuinely make your home safer. And there's a reason this signal is wired in so deep. To find it, we have to go back to the very first hours of your dog's life. Before a puppy can see, before it can walk, it is being licked. The mother licks her newborns constantly, and not just to clean them. That licking stimulates the puppy to eliminate, and it stimulates circulation and blood flow. In those first weeks, the mother's tongue is, quite literally, keeping the puppy alive. This is well documented in the veterinary literature on maternal behavior in dogs, for example, a Haingen-Lermoy-Chin review by Lazama Garcia and colleagues summarizing decades of work. I want to be careful here, because honesty is the whole point of this channel. That's a review of the research, not a single dramatic experiment, and I'm not going to dress it up as more than it is. But the takeaway is solid. The very first thing a dog learns about the world is that a tongue means care, safety, and connection. So when your dog licks you, it's reaching for the oldest, most basic, "we're okay" signal it has ever known. Which brings us to the part people most want to be true. Does any of this connect to actual love? Here the science is real, but it's also where the internet gets sloppy. There is strong evidence that close, affiliative contact between dogs and people activates the bonding hormone oxytocin, the same chemical involved in human parent and child bonding. The landmark study is Nagasawa and colleagues, Haingen-Lermoy in the journal Science. With 30 dogs and their owners, they found that mutual gazing set off what they called a positive feedback loop. When dog and owner looked at each other, the owner's oxytocin went up, which led to more interaction, which raised the dog's oxytocin too. A loop, running between two different species. They even showed that giving dogs a dose of oxytocin made them gaze at their owners more. Now, here's me keeping my promise to you. You'll see a lot of videos and articles throw out hard numbers. Oxytocin jumped matrumbamifantrum in owners, batrumfantrum in dogs. I went looking for those exact figures in the actual paper, and they're not stated that cleanly. They come from second-hand retellings. The honest version is this: affiliative dog-human contact measurably raises oxytocin on both sides. That's the real, defensible claim, and it's still remarkable. So yes, there is a genuine bonding chemistry behind your dog's affection. Licking and closeness are part of how your dog plugs into it. I just won't hand you a fake decimal to make it sound more impressive than it is. And speaking of claims that don't hold up, let's deal with the one explanation almost everyone repeats, that I cannot back with real evidence. You've heard it. Dogs lick you because your skin is salty, especially after you sweat. It's everywhere. And it might be a small, opportunistic factor. Taste is real. Dogs do explore the world with their mouths. But I looked for a primary study that actually tests human skin salt or sweat as the main reason dogs lick people, and I couldn't find one. There's no clean experiment confirming it as the driver. So I'm not going to give you a statistic about it, because there isn't an honest one to give. File salty skin under, maybe a little, but not the explanation. This is exactly the kind of claim that sounds scientific and gets copied 1,000 times without a single study underneath it. Not on this channel. Now for the one I promised at the start, the kind of licking that isn't communication at all, and that you should treat as a warning light. Here's the part most, why does my dog lick videos completely miss? Sometimes excessive licking has nothing to do with love, greeting, or even anxiety. Sometimes it means your dog is sick. In Haingen-Lermoy, Becu Bonnet and colleagues published a study in the Journal of Veterinary Behavior on dogs with what they called excessive licking of surfaces dogs that compulsively lick the floor, the couch, the carpet, the air. They worked up 19 of these dogs medically, alongside 10 healthy controls. The result is the number I want you to remember. In my born of those Moichin dogs that's by my born fantrum, they found an underlying gastrointestinal disorder. Things like giardia, inflammation in the gut, delayed stomach emptying, chronic pancreatitis. And when the medical problem was treated, the obsessive licking improved or stopped in many of them. Think about what that means. For decades, that behavior would have been written off as a nervous habit, or he's just weird. But for most of these dogs, the licking was the symptom the body's check engine light. The dog wasn't being neurotic. It was telling us, in the only way it had, that its stomach hurt. So the same behavior that can mean feed me, I come in peace, and you're my family, can also mean I don't feel right. That's why a single label like kisses is not just wrong. It can be the reason a real problem gets missed. Before we reframe all of this, I want to kill one explanation you'll still hear in comment sections. That licking is your dog submitting to you as the alpha or trying to dominate the pack. Let me be direct. That framing is outdated, and the most interesting part is who said so. The whole alpha wolf idea came from studying wolves crammed together in captivity, unrelated animals forced into a fake pack. The biologist whose work popularized that language, L. David Meck, the same researcher behind the regurgitation study we just looked at later, spent years trying to walk it back. He's openly said the captive pack alpha model doesn't describe how real wild wolf families actually work. Wild wolf packs are mostly just families, parents and their offspring. There's no constant battle for rank, so when your dog licks you, it is not conceding a power struggle, and it is not staging one. It's doing something far more ordinary and far more touching. Greeting family, asking for calm, reaching for care. Drop the dominance lens entirely. It will only make you misread your dog. With that cleared away, here's the cleaner, truer way to think about every lick your dog gives you. So let's put the kiss to rest, gently, and replace it with something more accurate and, honestly, more beautiful. A lick is not a word. It's closer to a whole sentence, and the meaning lives in the context, not the action. The same flick of the tongue can be a greeting carried down from wolves who begged for food at the mouth. It can be a request. Easy. I'm not a threat. Let's stay friendly. It can be the echo of the first care a puppy ever felt, that were safe signal from its mother's tongue. It can be a thread in the real bonding chemistry that links your nervous system to your dog's. And it can be a quiet alarm that something hurts. When you call all of that kisses, you flatten a rich, ancient language down to a greeting card. You stop listening. And the cost isn't just romantic, it's practical. The owner who hears only aw, kisses, is the owner who misses the dog licking the floor every night because its gut is inflamed. Here's the reframe I'd love you to walk away with. Your dog is not doing a human thing badly. Your dog is doing a dog thing perfectly, running a behavior that kept its ancestors alive, smoothed over conflict in the pack, and bonded mothers to pups, all wrapped into one. It's not less than a kiss. In a way, it's older and deeper than a kiss. It's your dog talking to you in the first language its species ever had. The goal was never to feel less love. It's to actually understand what's being said, to be the kind of pet parent who hears the difference between hi, please, and help. So how do you put this to work tonight? You don't need a lab. You need to read 3 things: when, where, and how much. First, read the when. Did the licking start the second you walked in the door? That's the greeting program, the Wolf-Pup, your back signal. Did it start when you leaned over your dog, reached for its collar, hugged it tightly, or came home tense? Watch for that quick lip lick and look away. That's likely appeasement, your dog asking you to slow down and keep things calm. The fix is simple and kind. Give it a little space, soften your body, lower your voice. You're not being rejected. You're being asked, politely, to de-escalate. Second, read the where and what. Licking aimed at you, your hands, your face, your legs in a relaxed, waggy, social moment is almost always normal greeting and bonding. Enjoy it. You don't need to stop it unless you simply don't want the contact, in which case redirect to a toy or a cue like sit and reward the calm. No need to scold something that's fundamentally friendly. Third, and this is the one I really want to land, read the how much and at what. Here's your red flag checklist. If your dog suddenly starts licking surfaces obsessively, the floor, the carpet, the couch, the air, or licking one spot on its own leg or paw raw, or if the licking is paired with drooling, lip smacking, gulping, loss of appetite, or vomiting, do not file it under habit. Remember that study. Most of those compulsive surface lickers had a gut problem. Call your vet and describe it specifically. You might be catching giardia or pancreatitis weeks before anything else would have shown up. When you call the vet, be specific. It helps them help your dog. Tell them what your dog licks you: the floor, one paw, the air when it started, how often, and whether anything else changed. Appetite, energy, stool, any drooling or gulping. He's been licking the carpet for 2 weeks and eating less points, a vet in a very different direction than He licks my hands when I get home. Precision is how a vague worry becomes an early diagnosis. A simple rule of thumb. Social licking is conversation. Sudden, repetitive, obsessive licking is a symptom. One you read for connection. The other you take to the vet. Tonight, just watch your dog with those two buckets in mind. You'll be amazed how quickly the picture sharpens. That's what it feels like to stop guessing and start seeing. So the next time your dog licks your hand, you'll know you're not getting a kiss. You're getting something with tens of thousands of years behind it. A greeting from the den, a small act of peace, an echo of its mother, a real pulse of bonding chemistry. And once in a while, a message you need to act on. That's not less magical than a kiss. It's a conversation. The only question is whether you're listening. So I'm curious, when your dog licks you, which moment does it usually pick? The second you walk in? When you're upset? Or right as you settle in for the night? There's no wrong answer. Tell me in the comments, in just a few words, when and where on you. I read these, and the patterns are fascinating. If you want to keep decoding your dog instead of guessing, subscribe to PetMindLabs. That's our whole mission here. Stop guessing, start seeing. And next on PetMindLabs, we're decoding another behavior everyone misreads: why your dog suddenly climbs into your lap or up onto you, and what it's really claiming when it does. I'll see you there.